I never imagined my grandma's heartbreaking struggle would inspire my own journey of healing. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a Sunday. The sun looked down on us, glaring as if it knew the secrets we were hiding. The smell of freshly baked bread wafted from Grandma's kitchen, but that day it only heightened the tension in the air. I sat at the worn kitchen table, fingers trembling against the surface, heart racing with each tick of the clock. Grandma was sitting just across from me. Her fingers knotted into a ball as she stared blankly out the window. I'd seen that look on her face before, the veil of grief thick and heavy, as if the very air around her was trying to suffocate her spirit. She was like a ghost, haunting the room, her presence both familiar and distant. "It's just a matter of time until it gets better," I whispered, hoping my words would pull her back from wherever she had drifted. But she didn't respond. The silence was deafening. I could hear her heart breaking, each beat echoing in the stillness. I thought about the life she had lived. As a child, I would sit at her feet, enthralled by her stories. The tales of love, loss, and a strength that seemed almost supernatural. But when I looked at her now, all I could see was the weight of sadness, wrapped around her like a tightly clutched shawl. Something strange was happening in our small town, I realized. The streets that had once been filled with laughter and warmth now wore a shroud of fear. My friends spoke in hushed tones about mysterious disappearances. People seemed to vanish as quickly as shadows under the evening sun, leaving behind only whispers and lingering fears. And with each passing day, those fears crept closer to my home. As Grandma's gaze drifted back to me, I caught a glimpse of something in her eyes. Was it regret? There were stories she hadn't told, secrets buried deep beneath her frailty. I felt the urge to reach out, to grasp her hand and pull her back from that abyss. But what if she didn't want to be saved? What if her sorrow was a part of her I couldn't understand? The atmosphere thickened, heavy with unsaid words and emotions left unspoken. I wanted to shout, to demand answers. "Why are you like this, Grandma? What happened?" But the words stuck to the roof of my mouth, choked by fear of uncovering too much. I was really asking her about me. Did I inherit her sorrow? Suddenly, the door slammed open, and my mom rushed in, breathless, eyes wide with panic. "They found another one," she gasped. I felt the color drain from my face. Another one? Another disappearance? My heart raced, pounding in a frantic rhythm that echoed the storm brewing inside my chest. Grandma's eyes darkened, shadows creeping back into their depths. She locked me in her gaze, an untold truth pulsating in the silence between us. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. The room felt charged with something electric, the kind of moment where everything could change. And then, just like that, the moment slipped away, leaving us dangling in uncertainty. What if the answer to my grandmother's heartache was intertwined with the darkness surrounding us? I had to know. But would I be brave enough to dive into the unknown, to confront whatever lurked beneath her sorrow? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following week felt like a shroud of gray hung over our town. Jazz music spilled from the radio, trying its best to fill the air with spirit. But even the cheerful notes couldn't mask the undercurrents of anxiety that flooded our lives. It was Wednesday when the third disappearance rocked us all. Yet another beloved neighbor snatched from our midst, leaving nothing but a haunting echo of smiles that once graced the streets. My heart felt tethered to a weight that dragged me down as I walked into Grandma's house that afternoon. The familiar sense of her cooking met me at the door, a comforting presence in an otherwise suffocating world. Yet today, the bread in the oven was too brown, and the herbs sprinkled in her signature soup wilted in the fading light. "Grandma," I called softly as I entered, but she didn't respond. Instead, she stood in front of the sink, staring out the window. Her back was hunched under the burden of countless memories, not the beautiful ones she shared with me, but the darker shadows of her past that she had chosen to keep hidden. I placed my hand on her shoulder, feeling the rigidness of her frame, the unyielding block of sorrow. "Are you okay?" She turned slowly, her eyes brimming with a tempest of emotions. Life can be cruel, she whispered, each word laced with pain. You never know when the light will dim. A lump formed in my throat. But Grandma, we have each other, I said, hoping to pierce the darkness. We can face this together. Without a word, she shifted her gaze back to the street. The warmth faded, and I felt the cold wrap around us both. I knew then that every smile I remembered from her stories was now entangled with grief, binding her more tightly to the past. Just then, a light knock interrupted the kind that held promise. I wiped my eyes and opened the door to find Mr. Thompson, our elderly neighbor, standing there with a plate of cookies. Thought you might like some company, he said, a hint of a smile stretching across his face, albeit weak. Mr. Thompson, I exclaimed, thank you. He always had a way of lightening the mood, even amidst despair. I invited him in, and soon the three of us sat around the table. As Mr. Thompson recounted tales of his younger days swimming in the river, summer picnics in the park, a small spark ignited in Grandma. Her lips curled slightly, a flicker of joy illuminating her features. I leaned in closer, eager to keep this light alive. But moments of levity were fleeting. Just as the laughter began weaving through the air, Mr. Thompson's face turned serious, and he glanced out toward the window. Have you heard the rumors, dear? He asked, directing his concern to both of us. What rumors? I asked, though I could already feel my heart racing in dread. The gravity of his next words hung in the air like thick fog. People are saying that the disappearances are connected, like someone is taking them for a reason beyond our understanding. Grandma's fingers tightened around her soup spoon, her knuckles turning white, reflecting her internal battle. What do you mean? She managed to ask, though her voice trembled. Some say they have seen a figure lurking at night, between the shadows of the trees. A chill crept down my spine. I looked at my grandma, her expression a medley of fear and resolve. What if some terror slumbered in our backyard, draped in the very darkness that had crept into her mind? I could no longer bear the thought of losing her to those shadows, or worse, letting the shadows take her as they had taken so many others. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure how deep this rabbit hole went. My resolve was shaken as the reality of our situation settled into my bones like ice. Still, I felt a sliver of hope, kindled by Mr. Thompson's unexpected kindness. If we faced this together, maybe we could push back the encroaching darkness, find a way to draw light into the corners it touched at as the sun began to sink behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the room. Grandma stood abruptly, brushing past me. I need to show you something, she said, her tone sharp, with urgency. I followed her, my heart hammering. She opened a small dusty box tucked away on a shelf, revealing a collection of old letters tied together with a frayed ribbon. These, they need to be read. I should have done it long ago, but I was terrified of what I might uncover. My fingers trembled as I took the letters. They felt heavy with memories, secrets contained within ink and paper, waiting to be exposed. Suddenly, an unexpected sound echoed through the house, a low, haunting wail emanating from the outside. We froze, hearts pounding in synchronicity as the wail persisted, filling the air with a chilling dread. There it was, a sound that echoed the very sorrow I feared would consume us, a sound that demanded our attention, one that beckoned us to explore the unknown, or risk losing each other altogether. What is happening? I whispered, my gaze darting between Grandma and the window, the sweet remnants of our earlier joy slipping away into a swirling tempest of fear. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, plunging us into twilight, I realized something profound. The truth was knocking. It demanded to be unearthed, and it was entwined with our very shadows. Our journey was only beginning, and the pages of Grandma's past were now spilling into the present, leading me closer to answers I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. The wailing continued, a bone-chilling sound that seemed to reverberate through the very walls of our home. It was unlike any sound I had ever heard, a mix of anguish and desperation that clawed at my heart. Grandma, too, stood frozen in place, the resolute grip she had on the letters loosening as her eyes widened in fear. Grandma, what is that? My voice trembled, barely a whisper, for I feared that speaking any louder would shatter the fragile calm we had managed to create even amidst the chaos. I don't know, she finally replied, her brow furrowed as if grappling with memories that rose up with the haunting echoes. But I've heard it before. A lump formed in my throat again. Had she been familiar with this sound long before it arrived at our doorstep? A part of me wanted to pull her close, shield her from whatever terror lurked in the shadows. Another part urged me forward to confront whatever dark mystery lay ahead, and understand how it tied to the letters she had shown me. "What do you want to do?" Mr. Thompson's soft voice broke through the stillness. He had grown anxious, yet the determined spark in his eyes remained, and I could tell he didn't want to show that fear. Not in front of us. But that fear was palpable, and each passing moment only thickened the air around us. Before I had even gathered my thoughts, Grandpa's words surged in my mind. "The only way to dispel darkness is to face it." I gripped the letters tightly, as if they were a talisman against the storm. "Let us go outside," I said, more for my own sanity than anything. The sound drew me like a moth to a flame, and I couldn't ignore the insistent pull. "We can at least see what it might be." With a shared look of hesitance, Grandma and Mr. Thompson followed me out onto the porch, where the wailing faded slightly but morphed into something that resembled a whisper, barely discernible but undeniably present. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the battered street, illuminating the neighborhood that felt eerily alien under the weight of night. I scanned the street, searching for signs of movement, desperate for a clue as to what had caused that sound. Each crackle of branches and rustle of leaves only heightened my anxiety, sending sparks of fear ricocheting inside me. The familiar homes now felt like intricate mazes of secrets. "Listen," Grandma's voice quivered, barely louder than a breath. "Do you hear that?" It was faint at first, but as I concentrated, I caught it, a rhythmic series of faint tapping sounds, as if something was gently rapping against a door in the distance. Instinctively, I turned toward the old community center at the end of the street. The center had always been a place of laughter and gatherings, but for years it had stood silent, haunted by neglect. My heart raced at the thought. I could barely recall the last time anyone had ventured near. Could there be something waiting for us inside? "I think it's coming from there," I said, taking a step forward without any real thought. The street lay silent, save for the flutter of distant leaves and the heavy sound of our breathing. "Are you sure?" Mr. Thompson asked, concern etched on his face. "It might not be safe." I turned to see Grandma's expression, a strange blend of fear and resolve. "No, we need to check it out. We might find something important." Just then, the wailing returned, suddenly loud and piercing, as if urging us to approach the very heart of the silence. My feet moved almost of their own will, pulling me toward the faint tapping. As we approached the community center, we congregated under a flickering streetlight, its warm glow struggling against the encroaching darkness. The closer I got, the more compelling that rhythm became, resonating deep within me. I could feel Grandma's silent panic beside me, but also an undeniable strength, a flicker of hope in her eyes. The large doors of the community center loomed like a gaping mouth, an entry to unknown mysteries. I pushed the door slightly, and to my surprise it creaked open, yielding to me as if it had a will of its own. The darkness inside seemed to breathe, alive with unspoken echoes. "Be careful," Mr. Thompson murmured, as he stepped a bit closer to help steady Grandma as we stepped inside. The chilly air clung to our skin, making us shiver involuntarily. Statuesque rows of chairs watched us, a silent audience in an empty hall. The dim light from the moon spilled through cracked windows, illuminating dust dancing in the air. Then I saw it on the far wall, an unsettling symbol smeared in something dark. It was an emblem I recognized from one of Grandma's letters, an inkling of a connection that sent shivers swimming down my spine. The weight of so many questions collided in my mind. In that moment, an unexpected clarity washed over me. Whatever was happening in our quiet town, it intertwined deeply with her past, her fears, and the memories she had chosen so carefully to protect. A click echoed in the distance as if something had shifted, awakening dormant memories. We exchanged glances, a wave of urgency crashing over us, igniting in my heart a burning need to uncover the truth. Just then, a shadow darted past the edge of the doorway, and instinct took over. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. A figure stood silhouetted, cloaked in shadows, staring straight at us. "Who are you?" I called, fear and determination intertwining within me as adrenaline surged to meet the looming unknown. The figure shifted, and as the moonlight reflected off the pale features, the familiar outline sent a jolt through me, connecting me back to Grandma's stories, her past bursting forth with a promise of revelations and heartaches yet to come. Help me, the figure whispered, a voice I never could have imagined needing to listen to. A name I had only ever read in tales long forgotten. The darkness pressed in around us, but for some reason, as terror coiled in my chest, I found myself wanting to rush forward. The threads of our lives were about to be irrevocably knotted together, drawing us deeper into a web that would challenge everything we thought we understood. Just before I could utter another word, the shadows swallowed the figure whole. Our breaths hitched collectively, and the stillness morphed into the kind of silence that sent tremors of urgency jolting through me. The journey had only just begun, and this was merely a taste of the haunting truths waiting to be unearthed. The air hung thick with unspoken fears as I stood there, heart racing, brimming with a chaotic mix of dread, and a strange sense of impending purpose. Grandma's grip on my arm tightened as if she understood that whatever had just vanished into the darkness held the key to a past she had kept buried for far too long. "Who was that?" Mr. Thompson whispered, his face etched with concern, eyes darting around the shadowy community center, as if he expected another figure to emerge from the gloom. "I don't know," I said, voice trembling, but they looked familiar, like someone from Grandma's stories. My heart sank at the realization how many tales had Grandma recounted that I had brushed off, thinking they were mere fables from a time long gone. Grandma's breath was quickening, and panic danced in her eyes. "Elena, maybe we should go," she urged, her voice edged with urgency tinged with the hushed fears of secrets unspoken. She made as if to pull me back toward the door, but my curiosity anchored me. "No, this could be important," I replied, trying to summon the courage to confront what lay hidden in the dark. "If that person knows something about the letters about the wailing, we can't just leave." "Sometimes it is wise to heed your fears, my child," Grandma said, though her voice wavered as she spoke, conflicted between the plea for safety and the call of the unknown. The tension in the room seemed to thicken, every passing second stretching into eternity. I took a deep breath. What if this is how we finally understand? How we heal? As the last word lingered, it hung in the air, sparking hope against the creeping dread. The letters had burdened my grandmother with their secrets for so long. Maybe confronting the figure or whatever awaited us could dissolve her fears at last. Mr. Thompson glanced at Grandma, clearly unsettled yet unwilling to leave us. "We can't just stand here." He stepped further into the dim hallway, his bravery a lighthouse against the heavy shadows. "If there is hope for answers, we should find them." With a shared nod, we ventured deeper. Every step echoed through the abandoned hall, reverberating through my veins. As the moonlight spilled through the fractured glass, illuminating fragments of the past, I found myself pulled toward the wall where the dark symbol lingered. "What do you know about this?" I asked, turning to Grandma, sensing an unspoken bond woven around the symbol's edges. Her eyes flickered with recognition, and she took a hesitant step forward. It was part of a group," she murmured, voice trembling, fragments of her past breaking through. "An old community seeking something they deemed valuable. But they lost their way." "What do you mean?" I pressed, watching her face for any signs of the grandmother I adored. "Lost within shadows of fear and rejection. They took risks, crossed lines they shouldn't have. Those who tried to unveil the truth were met with hostility and fear." A shiver danced down my spine as I pondered her words. It paralleled our own reality so vividly. Just like then, we were standing at the precipice of uncertainty. "Do you think that person, whoever they are, is someone who can help us uncover all of this?" I asked, the need for answers clawing at my sanity. Before she could respond, a crack echoed behind us, sending us spinning around. What we saw gripped my heart in ice. Another figure shimmered through the doorway, cloaked in the darkness, a ghost of despair lingering just on the edge of our understanding. "Stay away!" the figure yelled, voice cracked and raw, as if it fought against a tide of anguish. "You don't know what you're meddling with." My heart thundered against my rib cage. "We want to help," I shouted back, the urgency in my voice betraying any sense of caution. "Help? You have no idea." The figure's words cracked like thunder, resonating through the hall. "You bear the burden of a choice long forgotten. A choice that cannot be undone. The darkness cannot be faced without sacrifice." Grandma gasped, her eyes wide, a mix of dread and resonance flaring across her features like bursting stars. "No, it can't be, don't you see?" the figure continued, a glimmer of desperation flickering in their eyes. "Your family has danced on the edge of a blade for generations. It's your turn to break the cycle of suffering or succumb to it. Tears threatened to spill as the weight of their words collapsed over us. The full gravity of our journey sunk in. What do we do? My voice trembled under the weight of truth and imminent despair. How do we stop this? But before I could gather my thoughts, the figure vanished into the midnight shadows without another word, leaving us stripped of answers, the air around us vibrating with lingering tension. Grandma stood frozen, her hand pressed to her mouth. "They're right," she said softly, sadness pooling in her eyes like a storm on the horizon. "It's time for the truth. And I fear what we may find." The room felt darker than before, not just from the absence of light, but from the looming realization this was no longer just about the whispers in the dark. It was about choosing to face the legacies of the past versus stepping into the unknown, holding the weight of generations upon our shoulders. And so we stood in the smothering shadows, surrounded by echoes of a past that beckoned for resolution. The threads of our lives tangling more intricately, leading us deeper into that darkness, searching for a flicker of hope amid the despair. As I stood there, the weight of the figure's words loomed in the air, a heavy shroud pressing down on my chest. Grandma's stillness was deeply unsettling, and the shadows in the room seemed to pulse with our silence, creeping closer, waiting for our next move. "Grandma, we can't let fear hold us back," I whispered, my heart racing. I thought of all the times she told me stories about brave souls who faced darkness without flinching, how her own grandmother had sacrificed her fears for the sake of her family. What if that figure was right? What if understanding is our only way forward? Her eyes, once vibrant with the spirit of a fierce protector, now clouded with old sorrow, searched mine. "You don't know the depth of the pain that is connected to these choices, Elena. It's not just the letters and old stories, it's the lives intertwined with our own. But we have to try," I pleaded, feeling the urgency rise within me. "We can't just stand here paralyzed by the burden of the past. If we don't confront this, it will haunt us forever." Mr. Thompson stepped closer, his presence a steadying force amid the chaos swirling around us. "I believe what we uncover may be painful, but sometimes the truth can set you free. We've come this far. Let us at least follow the thread we've pulled." Grandma's sigh was heavy, a sigh filled with a lifetime of battles. She nodded slowly, weighing her own reluctance against the hope I had ignited in my words. "Then we must be careful," she whispered, her resolve hardening like iron. "There will be shadows that try to engulf us, but we'll need to shine a light even in the darkest of moments." With renewed determination we turned back to the hallway, our footsteps echoing softly against the faded linoleum. Each step felt like an act of defiance against the fear that gripped us earlier. The cold air brushed over us, but it felt somehow charged with possibility. "Maybe we can find the truth behind the symbol," I suggested, glancing sideways at Grandma, her face illuminated by the pale light that flickered above. "Perhaps it relates to the group you mentioned?" As we wound our way through the dimly lit corridors, memories of Grandma's stories began to surface in my mind. I recalled tales of gatherings beneath the ancient oak tree, where secrets were shared and promises made, but also of sacrifice and the dire consequences of blind ambition. If we pieced together what they wanted, we might understand what led to their downfall. Grandma's eyes softened and she paused, the tremor of unresolved fears still woven into her features. "You remind me of my younger self, so eager to uncover the truth. But my dear, some truths come at a cost." "Maybe, but I think we're ready to face that cost together," I responded, brushing past the doors leading to what I hoped would be answers. We've been given the chance to rewrite our family's narrative. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye at the far end of the hall. I squinted into the darkness but found nothing there, just shadows dancing at the edges, weaving between memories. "Did you see that?" I asked, my pulse quickening, half expecting the figure to reappear. "See what, dear?" Grandma's voice echoed with the haunted edges of uncertainty. Before I could reply, Mr. Thompson pointed toward a door that had been ajar, as if beckoning us. "That one," he whispered, excitement and anxiety laced together in his voice. "Feels different." We moved toward it cautiously, and as we pushed open the door, a wave of unfamiliar warmth enveloped us. Inside, scattered papers littered the floor, sunlight streaming through a cracked window, illuminating dust particles that danced like tiny stars. "What is this?" I gasped, stepping inside. Among the tattered papers sat a journal, its leather cover worn but still regal, a stark contrast to the remnants of despair outside. Grandma stepped closer, her breath hitching as she recognized it. This was my father's. My heart soared and sank all at once. What does it say? With shaking hands she picked it up, opening a page filled with scribbled notes and sketches, sprawling like a map of secrets yet to be unearthed. But just as she began to read, a thunderous bang echoed through the room, rattling the door. We jumped back, the journal slipping through Grandma's fingers and cascading onto the floor, scattering pages like frightened birds. What was that? I gasped, panic twisting in my gut. We're not alone, Mr. Thompson breathed, eyes wide as he peered into the hallway where an ominous shadow moved beyond the threshold. Get behind me, Grandma yelled, instinctively placing herself in front of us, determination lighting her features. As the shadow grew closer, the depth of uncertainty permeated the air, mingling with our mounting dread. But then, a voice soft but distinctly familiar rose from the depths of the darkness. Grandma? It called, uncertainty mingled with a sliver of warmth. It's me, please don't be afraid. Our breath caught in unison. I dared to step forward, crossing the threshold of fear. Isaac, I whispered, recognizing the name just like the fading memories of childhood summers spent in laughter, the cousin I thought had vanished long ago. What is happening? Grandma's voice wavered, fear coursing through her veins, but also a flicker of hope blooming against her heart's barricade. Your past is resurfacing. I've come to warn you. The truth holds dangers you can't imagine, he said, emerging hesitantly into the light, but his face remained shrouded in distress. You must choose carefully or risk losing everything. Each ominous word rattled the fragile semblance of hope I had found moments ago. Everything I thought I knew threatened to unravel, and the impending weight of choice sat heavy on my shoulders, leaving a taste of bitterness on my tongue. As he moved closer, shadows danced in his wake, whispering secrets of sacrifice that rattled through the air, threading their way into my heart with a chilling urgency. One glance at Grandma told me I was grasping the edges of a storm that promised to shake our world to its core. With every beat, the path before us narrowed, and as another echo of distant anguish faded into quiet despair, I knew our journey had only just begun, the fabric of our lives at risk of unraveling with every choice we made. The past loomed ever closer, and now, standing on the brink of revelations, we could sense the darkness ready to reclaim what once was. As I stood there, uncertain and trembling, my heart raced with a fusion of hope and apprehension. Isaac's presence filled the cramped room like a spark in the dark, igniting memories I had almost forgotten. Memories of laughter that mingled with the winds of summer, and whispered secrets beneath the stars. And yet, the haunting reality of his warning echoed in my ears, casting a long shadow over the flicker of warmth ignited by his arrival. Isaac, what do you mean by the truth holds dangers? Grandma questioned, her voice wavering, betraying the warrior spirit I had seen earlier. The anguish on her face deepened, drawing me closer to her, the warmth of our bond a fragile shield against the darkness looming just beyond the light. He hesitated, gaze flicking between us. Everything you seek is tied to a curse. It intertwines our fates, binding us to heartache and sorrow. I was drawn here by a force I couldn't understand until it was almost too late. His words began to swirl around me, making it difficult to breathe. Curse? I felt a heavy weight settle in my stomach, the dread that history, those ghosts we had been prodded to confront, extended far beyond mere stories. What curse? Grandma clutched the tattered journal to her chest, as if it could shield us from the truth waiting to break. Do you remember the story of the oak tree, Isaac? The rituals, the promises made? We thought they held power, but perhaps they ensnared us instead. Her voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability I had never seen before in this fearless yet often guarded guardian of our family. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the sunlight from the cracked window, once a beacon of possibility, dimmed, casting long shadows that loomed ominously. I could feel the burden of our lineage thrumming beneath my skin, the echoes of choices made weaving an intricate tapestry of fears that span generations. Listen, we have to confront it. The legacy of those choices, the weight they've held over us, it can be rewritten. I insisted, although uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my assertiveness. I felt the urgency of our situation, aware that we were on not just the brink of discovery, but a precipice teetering perilously into uncharted territory. You don't understand, Elena, Isaac interjected, urgency threading through each word. To uncover the truth means facing what they did, what they wanted to forget. It's not just knowledge. It's the reckoning you will have to embrace. There are things you might wish you never found out. His gaze bore into mine. A deep well of warning and a flicker of desperation. Grandma's hand found mine, squeezing tightly, comfort carved from shared pain. Sometimes knowing the truth brings more darkness than light, my darling. We must tread carefully. The past is not always as forgiving as we hope. My resolve swayed back and forth like a pendulum, caught between the terror of knowledge and the desire to rewrite our family's history. But any darkness can be faced together. We've already taken the first step. We can't abandon what was finally uncovered. Before my plea could settle in the air, the door swung wide, revealing a shadowy figure that stood silently, the half-light catching the contours of their face. It could have been a specter from my fears, ethereal and haunting, but the surprising familiarity tugging at my heart sent an electric wave through me, and recognition drew my breath away. It was Amelia. She stammered, her wide eyes reflecting the spark of shock that rattled through the room. What is happening? I felt a pull, something that compelled me here, Amelia. I couldn't hide the relief blossoming within my chest, although questions rushed forward in the wake of her sudden appearance. You're here too? What do you know? More than I ever wanted to, she breathed, stepping slightly into the room, her presence offering a shield against the shadows ravaging the night. But the strain on her face spoke volumes. There are pieces to this puzzle, more than you can imagine. I wasn't initially drawn here for just family. There are secrets that spread beyond us, deeper entangled with my mother's past, and the tragedies that linger in our bloodlines. A shiver danced down my spine as her words took root, intertwining with the threads we were already grasping. The thought that our hardships and traumas were not solely our burdens deepened the weight in the pit of my stomach. Secrets? I echoed, sensing the gravity of our collective fate tightening around us. How much do you know? Amelia's face crumpled with conflicting emotions, a battle of wanting to share, but also containing the dreadful realization of what that knowledge held. I know it won't be easy, and the truth might fracture everything you believe about your family, our family. But it's time. Only by facing all of it can we begin to heal. The air crackled with tension as the culmination of our entangled tales hung overhead like dark clouds ready to burst. A heavy silence settled in the room. It was an unspoken agreement that we were in this crucible together, navigating the paths leading to revelations we weren't sure we wanted. Amelia, I said, swallowing hard, will you help us? Help us uncover this truth? She met my gaze with an intensity that ignited hope, yet despair lurked in her eyes. But be warned, once you step forward, there's no going back. And just like that, the weight of everything I held dear faltered at the threshold of uncertainty. The choices that lay ahead started to shimmer with the duality of danger, and promise, the promise of understanding, and the peril of jumping into the depths of ancestral pain. Then let us go, Grandma said, rising with a fragile courage that inspired the remnants of my own. We owe it to the generations before us, and to the ones that come after. In that moment I felt a sense of solidarity bind us, tethering my heart to my family even as the impending storm loomed. I knew this was just the beginning of a journey that threatened to unravel the very fabric of our existence. And as we stood facing the abyss, a chilling realization gripped me: the threads of destiny would soon weave together in ways we could neither anticipate nor escape. As we stepped out into the quiet of the evening, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting vibrant hues of orange and purple across the sky, a stark contrast to the gray despair brewing in our hearts. With every step, the weight of the choices looming ahead pressed heavier on my shoulders, each footfall reverberating with the stories yet untold and the struggles yet to be faced. Isaac led the way, but his silhouette was shadowed by the burden of his knowledge. Amelia walked beside me, her hand brushing against mine, a silent exchange of solidarity that flickered like the final embers of a dying fire. Grandma followed closely, her presence a steady anchor in the whirlwind of uncertainty that wrapped around us. Where do we start? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The air felt charged, as if the very universe was holding its breath, waiting in anticipation of our next move. There's a grove, Isaac finally replied, his gaze fixed on the darkening path ahead. A place where the rituals were performed. It's said that the oak, the one from the stories, stands watch over it still, its roots entangled with our secrets. We need to confront it if we want to understand the curse. Amelia shivered slightly, the chill of the evening seeping into her resolve. I've heard whispers of that grove. My mother used to tell me tales about it when I was younger. She viewed it as a forbidden place, a boundary between our world and something much darker. But I always felt a pull towards it, a sense of something unfinished. Grandma's grip on her journal tightened, her knuckles pale against the leather cover. Maybe it's time we finish what was started, even if it terrifies us. The path grew narrower, lined with trees that loomed taller than any castle I'd ever dreamt of conquering. The growing twilight made every shadow appear deeper, as if the woods were alive and watching us, waiting for the moment we decross into history. My heart raced at the thought of the answers lurking within the grove's depths, yet unease twisted in my stomach like a knotted thread. Suddenly, a high-pitched cry pierced the silence, a desperate call echoing through the trees. We halted, startled. Did you hear that? Amelia's eyes widened with concern. I did, I replied, instinctively catching Grandma's hand. It sounded like a help. The voice rang out again, clearer this time, a plea infused with anguish. The air thickened around us, an electric tension crackling to life as adrenaline coursed through my veins. Isaac turned sharply toward the sound. This way. Without hesitation, we pressed through the underbrush, guided by the urgency of the call. My thoughts swirled in chaos, fear knotting itself in my chest. What if it was a trap? What if it was related to everything we were trying to unfold? Yet an inexplicable pull urged me onward, like gravity from some unseen force. The further we went, the more we felt the weight of the darkness closing in, the trees bending toward us in an almost conspiratorial manner. Finally, we broke through the dense foliage and found ourselves in a clearing. The grove laid out before us a sacred circle encircled by ancient oaks. The atmosphere felt thicker here, almost sacred yet haunting, as if the air itself hummed with lost hopes and regrets. In the center, illuminated by a sliver of moonlight, was a figure crumpled on the ground. My heart leapt. No, I gasped, recognizing the unmistakable silhouette. It was a woman, tangled in roots, her hair wild and disheveled, hands clawing at the earth as if trying to escape. "Mom!" Amelia shouted, and I felt my heart stop. My breath caught in my throat as she rushed forward, the world fading into a blur. "Amelia, no!" I cried as panic surged like a tidal wave, but she was already at her mother's side, tears streaming down her face as she reached out. "Stay back!" Isaac's warning cut through the air, but the moment escaped us, pulling us into its chaotic current. I stood frozen, held at bay by a dangerous mix of hope and fear, watching as Amelia embraced her mother, who looked lost, trapped not just by the roots of the earth but by the gravitational hold of secrets her own heart bore. "Mom," Amelia whispered, desperation lacing her voice. "What happened? We've been searching for you." Her mother's eyes cracked open, fixed on her daughter with a mix of recognition and horror. "You shouldn't be here, Amelia. It's not safe. The curse, it's awake." Every word felt like a thunderclap ringing throughout the grove, the echo settling into the marrow of my bones. Grandma's breath hitched beside me, our shared realization dawning with a chilling weight. Every step we had taken toward the truth had summoned this moment. "What curse?" I found my voice, trembling yet insistent. "Tell us everything, please." But before she could respond, the ground began to tremble beneath our feet, the trees swaying ominously. An unnatural wind howled through the clearing, sending leaves spiraling in a frenzied dance. Shadows flared from the depths of the grove, creeping toward us like ink spilling across parchment, darkening the world around us. Isaac stepped forward, grounding me with a knowing look, yet I could see the fear flickering in his eyes. "We need to leave. Now." But it was too late. A force exploded around us, a deep rumble shaking the very air, and as the shadows converged, I felt my heart surge with an unrelenting sense of dread and hope intertwined, as if what lay at the heart of our ancestors' sorrow was finally rising to meet us. And before we could break from the impending storm, Amelia's mother whispered a final, anguished warning: "The truth will cost you everything. It's time to choose." In that moment, as the veil between past and present threatened to tear apart, I knew we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The earth shuddered violently beneath our feet, and an all-consuming darkness rushed toward us, the shadows morphing into tangible forms twisted and distorted by years of sorrow and anguish. I could feel the pulse of fear racing through my body as Amelia's mother struggled to pull herself free from the invasive roots, desperation coloring her every move. "Mom, hold on," Amelia cried, her voice trembling as she dug her fingers into the soft earth, glancing back at us, her eyes wide with terror. Isaac's hold tightened on my arm as if anchoring me against the tide of chaos. "We can't just stand here," he shouted over the cacophony. "We have to help her." "No," Grandma interjected, stepping closer to the swirling darkness. "It's too dangerous. We don't know what that is." "Mom, please." Amelia's pleas echoed in my ears, a mantra dismantled by the terror enveloping us. Then, as if the air had thickened into stone, Amelia's mother, with her free hand, grasped the roots tightening around her legs. "You don't understand. It's too powerful. The answers you seek will cost you dearly." Her voice broke, and I caught the fleeting shadow of regret flitting across her features. In that moment, a bittersweet memory flickered into my mind, the way Grandma would speak of her youth, recounting tales filled with laughter and love, only for a veil of melancholy to drape over her when she spoke of the choices that led her here. There was weight to those stories, a burden borne through generations. "Amelia, we can't lose her," I breathed, the words spilling out before I could think. There must be a way to help her. My heart ached not just for Amelia, but for the legacy of family tethered to a past drowning in shadows. Then a sudden realization pierced through the chaos. Perhaps to heal, we first had to confront what had been left unspoken. I knelt beside Amelia, refusing to let the dark maelstrom take her mother without a fight. "If she's southbound by this place, maybe we can break the bond," I said, trying to draw strength from my heart, from the stories of our families, from the love that had been lost and now found. "Think of something good," I urged, recalling Grandma's tales of strength forged from love. "Remind her of happier times. We need to pull her back with our memories." Amelia exhaled sharply and nodded, a desperate fire igniting within her. "Mom, remember when we used to sit in the backyard watching the fireflies? You made us laugh as they danced around like stars. We can get through this." Courage seeped into the moment, the past intertwined with the present, pushing back against the suffocating shadows. I closed my eyes, envisioning a day spent beneath the open sky filled with laughter, the sun casting gold across our memories. I imagined pulling out the threads of joy woven into the fabric of our family's history, letting them shine in the murky darkness. "Remember our family picnics?" I joined in, my voice growing steadier, uttering half-formed memories that blossomed with hope. "The way you would laugh when Grandma brought her infamous potato salad?" The tremors slowed, the shadows hesitating as if our words created a barrier against their approach. It was working. Suddenly, a voice, deep and resonant, penetrated through the howling wind. "You seek to unbind the past," it thundered, reverberating through the grove. "Do you understand the price?" I faltered, glancing at Isaac and Grandma. Their faces mirrored my uncertainty, but the light in Amelia's eyes urged me on. She gripped her mother's hands tighter, and tears streamed down her face, resolute in her conviction. "Yes," she shouted back defiantly. "We do. We'll pay whatever it takes to save her." But as the shadows coiled closer, I felt a tug at my heart, the very core of our collective grief. For every bond released, a piece of ourselves would have to remain. The air rippled with the force of our decision, sending shivers of resonance through the grove. "Be mindful, for wisdom is heavy and truth cuts deep," the voice warned, echoing with foreboding. "One must remain. The cost of liberation demands sacrifice." Horrified silence stretched, filled with uncertainty as the tremors rose once more. And just as the shadows surged against us, a brilliant light ignited in the clearing, shimmering with an otherworldly glow that defended against the encroaching darkness. Amelia's mother drew strength from her daughter's words, her resolve brightening alongside the growing light. "Together," we shouted in unison, our voices combining into a force that rang through the grove, their warmth spreading among us, binding our souls like vines around a tree, uniting our purpose against the howling wind. But as the light embraced us, I understood what the shadows were whispering. The cost of our fight could lead us to an unimaginable choice, one that would bind our fates together or tear us apart from the roots of our story forever. And just as the climax reached its peak, the light erupted, forming into a spectral shape, a figure cloaked in brilliance, emanating both warmth and sorrow, standing solid at the edge of the grove. "Who will pay?" it asked, its voice both kind and terrifying in that fleeting heartbeat. As I contemplated the sacrifice that loomed heavy over us, I realized the path ahead was irrevocably changed. The decision forged in that moment would either sever our bonds or stitch back together the fabric of our lives. The weight of my heart plummeted. Would we find hope? Or would we discover the depths of our fears through the cost of liberation? The light flared, illuminating the terrified faces around me, casting long shadows that mingled with our own fears. The figure before us shimmered like a beacon in the storm, and I held my breath, the air thickening with the weight of impending choices. Who will pay? It repeated, piercing through the tension. I could see its eyes, deep wells of understanding and pain, reflecting every agony we carried. The realization struck me. One must remain. The words echoed in my mind, laced with sorrow and dread. Each of us possessed scars that told stories of heartache, yet none felt heavier than Amelia's. It was etched in her mother's eyes, in the root-like tendrils that sought to bind her. I will, Amelia said, her voice small, but it carried the force of a river breaking through a dam. I'll stay. Just let her go. Amelia, no. I shouted, gripping her arm, panic igniting within me. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her to the shadows. There has to be another way. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just her pain driving her. It was the hope of freedom, of finally breaking the cycle that had ensnared their family. It made my heart ache for her, and yet I understood. As much as I wanted to protect her, the darkness had its claws deep into her mother, and she would fight with everything she had to save her. Amelia, listen to me, I implored, stepping closer, my voice trembling. Your life is more precious than any moment we've lost in this past. You deserve to live fully, to cherish the future, not be caught in this cycle forever. I can't just stand by. I want tea, she cried, and her fervor resonated within the clearing, crackling like a live wire. The figure's gaze remained steady, unwavering in its sorrow. The bravery displayed shall not go unrewarded, it acknowledged, its voice reminiscent of a soft, mournful breeze. But understand the sacrifice you contemplate, young one. As Amelia opened her mouth to speak, words falling like autumn leaves, Grandma stepped forward, her weathered hands trembling. Wait, you don't know what it means to make such a decision. Her voice wavered, the cracks of age pronouncing her struggle. We've all fought too hard to see our family broken again. The air thickened with unshed tears, an unfamiliar dread settling over us. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, time slipping away as fear festered. I glanced at Isaac, searching for clarity in his expression. He stood frozen, his eyes reflecting the realization that we were teetering on the edge of something irrevocable. Amelia, Isaac finally said, his voice a gentle plea, if you choose this path, we all stand with you. But don't do it alone. Let us decide together. The spectral figure regarded us with a profound sadness, casting its gaze to the earth beneath our feet. Sacrifice is not merely the absence of a loved one. It is an indelible mark upon the soul that resonates through time. There was wisdom and grief woven through its words, almost like a memory of choices made long ago. Grandma reached out to Amelia, pulling her close. Honey, you are the heart of our family. What binds us is stronger than fear. Don't bear this weight alone. As Grandma held her tight, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. This was our chance, our moment. Strength came from the roots we had planted over the years, branching towards the light. I turned back to Amelia, tentatively reaching for her hand, letting the warmth of my support bolster her resolve. Together we can find a way, I assured, my voice firm. Amelia, we're here. We will not let darkness take you or your mother. But we must be willing to face the shadows as a family. The light pulsed, echoing our collective will, beating like a heart. But then the ground quivered beneath us, a deep rumble resonating in the earth as if it bore witness to our struggle. I could feel the presence of something ancient, something waiting, and then an unsettling tremor sprung through the roots around us, each pulse a warning that the shadows would respond unto that moment. A flash of light enveloped us, a glimmer of hope, perhaps, or a prelude to despair. The figure turned, the glow shifting, and for the first time my heart caught. For must step forward, one shall remain. My breath caught as ice spread through my veins. The choice was ours to make, unprotected and raw. Isaac stepped back in realization, the color draining from his face. This is about sacrifice, I assent to it. he asked, and there was hurt in his eyes, a flickering flame of understanding in the depths of his soul. But before we could react, the ground erupted with a force that tore the very air apart. "Make your choice," the figure called as darkness snarled, a reminder that time was slipping from us like sand through fingers. Amidst the chaos, Amelia's expression shifted, her fierce determination morphing into a glimmer of fear, palpable and impenetrable like an autumn fog. Fear of losing everything she held dear, herself, the past, the chance to rise above the shadows. And then it hit me, a realization that stunned my heart. The roots weren't just binding Amelia's mother. They held each of us, each decision pressing into our very souls. "Amelia!" I screamed, desperation surging through my voice. What if? But before I could complete my thought, a snarl erupted from the darkness, and I knew we were running out of time. The choice loomed like a specter over us, already entwined with the possibility of betrayal, separation, and heartache. What would we sacrifice to break free? Would we unravel the very fabric of our family or forge a bond unshakable as we embraced the truth of our past? As the shadows closed in, threatening to consume us whole, I held onto the light within me, praying that together, we could navigate the labyrinth of our choices, even as I felt the impending weight of a heart-wrenching truth simmer just beneath the surface. In that crucible of fear and courage, the weight of our history hung heavy. The answer we sought lay buried in our hearts, but would it pave the way to salvation or bury us in darkness forever? As the shadows swirled around us, a suffocating presence that threatened to eclipse our every breath, I felt time slow, every heartbeat stretched taut against the expectation of loss. A discordant symphony of regret and longing swelled in the air, churning the very fabric of our fates as we stood face to face with the echoes of our ancestors. This wasn't just a moment of reckoning for Amelia. It was for all of us, tethered to a past we had yet to fully unravel. Overhead, the trees murmured, their branches swaying as if urging us to remember the stories buried within the roots that intertwined beneath our feet. "For must step forward. One shall remain," the figure echoed through the chaos, its ethereal light flickering against the encroaching darkness, illuminating the agony etched in our faces. Every word throbbed against my heart as the implications pulled at the seams of our existence. Amelia, her hands trembling around her mother, exhaled a shuddering breath. "We can't just stand by. If I can save her, I will." The tension in her voice wrapped around us with an urgency that felt almost palpable. Beneath the surface, I felt the ancestral ties tightening, a legacy of choices awaiting their due. "Amelia, please. We can't allow you to make that sacrifice," I urged, stepping closer, my heart pounding. The gravity of this moment lay heavy on my chest, threatening to swallow me whole. I wanted to scream, to shake some sense into her, but I could see the steel in her resolve. I had to reach her another way. "You're right to fight for her. But we must do this together." "Together," she echoed, her eyes shimmering with tears that threatened to spill over. The flicker of hope ignited by my words shined through her fear as I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers as if we were weaving a lifeline between our souls. Grandma stepped forward, her voice strong and unwavering. "Sometimes the greatest act of love is not simply in sacrifice but in finding courage in unity. We must overcome this together. But if someone has to face the shadows, I will. My past, my choices." She drew in a deep breath, determination flickering in her eyes mirrored with despair. "It's time for me to confront my own demons, to hold the weight of my legacy and set you all free." "No!" I screamed, the word bursting forth like a dam breaking, panic rushing through me. "You don't have to shoulder the burden alone." My plea echoed against the trees, a desperate wish to rewrite the script we had found ourselves trapped within. But Grandma's gaze locked onto mine. Her love, fierce and protective, filled the space between us. "You're not ready to bear this weight yet, my darling. The past needs to be acknowledged. It's not just my fight. It's yours too. And let this be our family's chance at healing." The shadows flared as her words, imbued with the echoes of generations past, collided with the burgeoning light that surrounded us. But as the darkness surged, my heart thudded painfully against the weight of our choices, the realization that each step forward unspooled history from its tangled threads. A testament forged in each moment that brought us to this very crossroads. "Don't you see? This isn't just about her sacrifice," Isaac summoned, his voice catching fire. "The curse is intertwined with us all. If we confront the truth together, we can confront the darkness collectively. It won't define us. It will forge us." His conviction sparked something deep within me, a fire igniting, just enough to fight against the despair enveloping our existence. Together I whispered, catching Amelia's eye as I took a step toward her and Grandma. My heart thundered, each beat infused with the ferocity of our connection, our shared story barely held together through so much grief, yet yearning for the light. We can't let darkness decide our path. We have the power. The legacy our love is stronger than the shadows that bind us. And as I stared into the eyes of my family, the weight of our shared trauma transformed into a resilient thread of hope, weaving around every fear, every doubt. The darkness hesitated, and within that moment of uncertainty, we became a force to reckon with, unified under a banner of love and defiance. "Then stand with me," Grandma said, her voice rising above the cacophony. "Let us face whatever it is together." The shadows howled, thrashing against the light in bursts of malevolence, but as our voices melded into one, a fierce declaration of our intention, the very air around us glimmered alive, brightening each thread that connected our hearts. Together we stand against the shadows, against the curse entwined with our blood. Each of us shouted, a chorus of love and courage soaring against the suffocating darkness. A blinding light surged forth from the core of our union, cocooning us in its radiance, our collective energy creating a shield against the dark forces. The glowing entity emerged more vividly, as if compelled forward by the strength of our resolve. The shadows retreated, writhing against the power of our unity, faces contorting as our light pierced through their despair. As the wind howled and the ground trembled, I felt an urgent pull at my heart, a tug that signified our last step, the true moment of sacrifice blooming before us. If we didn't confront the final truth together, everything we cherished might remain shackled in sorrow forever. Out of the brilliance, a form materialized, a reflection of generations entwined before us, eyes shimmering with familiar light filtering through memories long buried. The moment felt suspended, and just then, I realized it wasn't merely about one of us staying behind. It was about a choice we made collectively, as a family bound in history and heartache. "Who will break the cycle?" the figure whispered, voice gentle yet powerful. "To heal, sacrifices must come from a place of unwavering love. One will stay, the other shall carry the legacy forward. It is time to choose." In that weighty moment my heart expanded, and I locked eyes with my family, my grandma, the fierce protector whose heart had shielded me from shadows for far too long, Amelia, a flame of hope destined to carry forth the truth, and Isaac, my steadfast ally in this intricate dance of fate. I took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of love that flowed through my veins, every memory of laughter spun over summers long gone. We choose to sacrifice together. As the shadows fell away and the light wrapped around us like a blanket, we shattered the chains of our past, standing united against all that sought to rend us apart. The burden of a family's legacy rested not just on one person, but on the strength of all of us, woven together by memories and recognition of the sacrifices made by ancestors before us. And in that triumphant moment, hope illuminated the path to unknown futures, a testament that together we had grasped the light. As dawn broke over the horizon, the shadows lifted, and hand in hand, we walked toward the promise of a new beginning anchored in love, reborn through sacrifice, and forever echoing the truth that no one has to face their darkness alone. In the swirling dawn, as the first rays painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, a final whisper danced through the air, echoing the resolve I would carry with me always. Together we write our story anew.